What is up, guys? Welcome to Diving Garage. In today's video, we're going to be talking about when you should or shouldn't build an engine run stand for your new engine. Let's dive in. Now, if you have a flat tappet build, you have two options. You can build an engine run stand like this, or you can just stick it in the car, hope for the best, and freaking send it. Doing your proper break-in, of course. Or maybe say you don't have the car ready. It's just a project. You're getting the engine taken care of. The chassis is down the road or off at another shop, but you need to get the engine ready. So in that case, I would say go for it, but beware. There are a ton of hidden costs in building a run stand, and let's get into them. The first thing you need to remember when you're building a run stand is that you're building essentially every system that's on a car. You gotta do a fuel system, an ignition system, wiring, coolant, water pump. You gotta do the whole 9 yards. All right, so let's start in the front here, and then we'll work our way to the back. So in the front here, obviously, if you're doing a flat tappet, you need to run this sucker for like 20 minutes plus. So you're gonna need a radiator. If you need a radiator, you also need some fans. Here you got an option. I chose electric fans because I had this radiator set up like this on hand. And if you're trying to use on-hand stuff, just don't. I know it's gonna sound cheap and it's gonna sound easy. I tried to use what I had on hand for this rig, and the only thing that I was successful for was the radiator. Yeah, I lucked out with the radiator, but honestly, don't. You can run a mechanical fan if you want, nothing wrong with that. We don't care about robbing horsepower on an engine run stand. We're just trying to get it going, get it broken in, and keeping it cool is key. And to hold up the radiator, I got this little very simple U-shaped frame, and the point of this whole run stand, for me at least, was to make it removable. So that way I don't lose this engine stand. I just bolt all this to it along with all the wires, and then I still have this engine stand. And so you can see here, I just have one bolt going from this square tube to the engine stand. While we're talking about the engine stand, these are the engine mounts that I use, of course, link in the description. And I use the engine mount, the bolt it came with, and the two little ears. And then I just got some scrap square tubes, some flat bar, and then I ran it down to connected it to the engine stand. So that way this motor doesn't go anywhere. The last thing you want is this thing trying to do a loop-de-loop while you're running it. So now here in the front, we have this mess. When I initially started this build, I planned on building a super nice, presentable run stand, but that clearly did not happen. So here in the front, these are 3 mandatory items you're gonna need. Do you know how much battery voltage you have? Because that's gonna determine if your engine stays running or not. You need to know your oil pressure. This is probably the most important one, and get a mechanical one on purpose. Running this line is super easy and super quick, and also you wanna make sure you got a cooling gauge. You gotta keep your engine cool. You don't wanna blow it up on the run stand. That'd be the worst. And of course, going on with the coolant, you want to make sure you're running an actual thermostat that's going to release the water back into the radiator, if I could speak, when it goes to the right temp. Of course, you need a water neck, hoses. I chose these flexible hose for up top, pretty universal. And I just chose some generic, correct size pipe for the lower. And this water pump had a kind of a funky size, so I had to adapt it from like a 2 1/4 down to this 1.5 inches. And again, for a run stand, this is just fine. Speaking of water pump, I chose to go with a short water pump because they're more compatible with things and a little bit easier to get set up than a long. And plus, you can keep this space tighter between the fan and the engine with a short nose water pump. And to drive said water pump, now we're gonna need pulleys. So if you can see in here, I just got this pulley kit, came with the crank pulley, water pump pulley, and belts. And off of that lower crank pulley, you wanna make sure you run an alternator. I just started disassembling this before I decided to make a video about it, just to help you guys out understand what's required. So, yep. Pulleys for the water pump, pulley for the crank, and of course pulley for the alternator. The alternator needs to go back to the battery. Just go right back off the back of the alternator, right to the battery. And then of course, make sure you run a good ground, not some little cheapo 12 gauge ground. Get like a big, nice 2 gauge ground. I got this nice cable right here, give me a good engine ground. And continuing on flat tappets, we got a tack. We're gonna need a tack because we wanna make sure it's running at the right RPM. For break-in on a flat tappet, you're gonna go 2,500. For a roller setup, you could do that if you want, but it's really not required like it is for flats. And if you're curious on where to pull tack from on these old school engines, it's just right here. On the top of the distributor, you got 2 inputs on the front. You got your power to feed the coil, and this green lead, if you can see right here, this green lead right next to it is your tack signal. And you run that from here all the way down back to your tack, your gauge right here. Yeah, so we need to make sure we're running at the right RPM for the kind of lifters you have. And moving our way down this funky little thing, this is actually the throttle. So it's a little stiff because of the way it's run, but when I pull on this, you'll see the throttle actually move. I don't want to do it too much because I'm shooting fuel in the engine. But that cable comes through here It's this one right here. Routes around, over here to this little bracket right there. And I'll put links to everything I use in the description in case you want to use some of the same stuff I did. All right, then going on to our little control panel here. We got this all wired up according to this, the instructions. So you got your master switch. This is where you need to put your ignition source. So right here, you see these two wires. One leads to my coil. This is what's kind of your panic button. So if something goes wrong, which it did in my case, you'll see in the link below, in the video link below, you want to be able to hit this and everything shut off immediately. So you want to make sure you put your master ignition right there. And of course you got your starter. That signal just goes to the small gauge wire to your starter over there, which you probably need to buy if you don't have an extra one laying around. And then you got your fuel pump, which is right here. And then you want to make sure you have it below your fuel source. So once it starts sucking a little bit, it stays primed. So this little section right here, fuel stays in here so it can keep pulling out of there. And then this, you'll have to see in the full video. I had to change this one out. But anyway, this just controls the gauges. That's not super required, but this is. So this is a 12-volt source for this relay, which powers the fans right there. And for the relay like that, you want to pull that right off the battery to feed your fans all the amps that they need. And in this fuel tank here, I just have some 93. I grabbed 93 just to be safe for breaking in purposes. You can use 87 if that's right for your engine. It kind of doesn't matter. You can see here my setup, pretty simple. I just got a fuel jug on a little roller stand feeding the pump. Now moving on to the actual engine headers. And this is one where I myself did myself dirty here a little bit. So I was thinking to myself, all right, it's just a run stand. All I need is just something to shoot the exhaust in one direction, right? Instead of coming straight out. And so I went with some eBay headers. Please save yourself the trouble. Don't do it. I don't care how cheap they are. I don't care if they're $5. Just don't. Skip the eBay headers. Because they're a pain. The bolt holes don't line up right. It can't take the hardware. Do they look cool? Heck yeah, they look cool. And they are stainless. But look here at the fastening hardware. No nut, one nut. No nut, no nut. Nothing at all, one nut. And on the other side, one nut, nothing. An Allen head bolt, nothing, nothing, one nut. I've wasted so much time messing with those things. I completely regret it. You're better off getting a cheap set you know works from Summit or Jegs or whatever, or even off Amazon, just a regular set of headers. Don't try and get the most bang for your buck headers on eBay. It's not worth it, I promise. And like I said, if you don't have a starter, I actually don't recommend this one. I'm not gonna put a link to it in the description. But what I do recommend is getting one from the parts store. Just if you're running a small block Chevy, get a high torque mini starter from like a 98 or 99 Silverado 1500, and that'll give you this gear reduction style instead of the big direct drive unit. And these work really well. So I don't recommend this one specifically, but go for the parts store. And then of course, run a big 2-gauge wire all the way down right to the battery. And back here, the distributor. So if you got an old one laying around, lucky you. If not, plan to buy a new one. And these are not super cheap. I've done videos before about not buying the cheapo Amazon ones, but this might be the only time I would recommend it because you only need it to work for a half hour. Don't put an Amazon distributor in your engine and then in the car and expect for it to work and work the way you want it to. It's not going to happen. But for a run stand for an hour, all right, cool, you could go for it. I really like this bracket right here. It's got all kinds of little attachments. It worked perfect for my cable I had set up. It's got the little hole there, and that little hook arm grabs the throttle linkage really well. Also spark plug wires, I got these from the parts store, and these are actually really nice. I didn't even know it, but these are, if you can see it, 8mm high temp, really nice plug wires. I didn't know the parts store was stocking stuff like this. I thought they were only 7mm. So yeah, check your parts store for that stuff too. If you got an old carburetor that's been sitting around on the shelf for a while and you think you'll just slap it on and use it, think again. If you are going to use a carburetor that's been sitting around, open it up, clean it, blow it out with some compressed air, give it the real service like you would if it was going in the car. because all it's going to do is give you those same problems that it would if it was in the car already. So save yourself the headache like I did not do, and service it, jet it properly, reset it up, change the springs, do everything you need to do. While we're here, this is how I recommend fueling these Edelbrock carbs. To do a dedicated feed for each little bank, and then do a fuel pressure gauge so you can know what's going on in there in the middle. And then that hose just kind of comes straight down to my little fuel pump. And don't forget these little accessories. You're going to need a oil fill depending on the valve covers you have. In this specific case, we do have the oil fill up here. That was just kind of a little bit of redundancy. And then you're going to need a PCV or a breather. So over here I got a PCV. I'm going right to the intake on the, or right to the carburetor. I do have a breather. So you want to run it just like that, because this is drawing a little bit of vacuum on your crankcase, and anything that's left over get pushed out right there. And the big one, the battery. Don't cheap out on your battery. I know it's another expense, and it's something else that you weren't planning on buying. And if you haven't figured it out yet, we have spent a lot of money on just this run stand. We're easily $500-600 deep, and we haven't even started the engine yet. Get yourself at least a decent parts store battery. Get, I don't know, maybe like $150 Napa, or like what is it, AutoZone Duralast Silver, something decent. And this little guy was pretty useful too. This is just a little Oxito jump box. They're pretty cheap, pretty affordable, and they work decent. In this case, it's really good. And of course, to go along with the starter, you're gonna need a flex plate. It kind of doesn't matter if you want to do an automatic flex plate or a standard flywheel. I'd recommend a flex plate, a little easier, but for that one, you can use what you got around. Just match the starter to the flex plate or flywheel. And this here was what I was talking about. So we got your stand with everything on it, radiator. I made a bit of a mess. And then we got the engine ready to go. There's nothing holding this thing on. It's ready to be lifted and put onto that pallet. Nice and easy. So guys, all in all, my recommendation is, if you're thinking about building an engine stand, see if your buddy wants to do it. Let him do it and ask to borrow it. Well guys, if you liked the video, do me a favor by hitting the like button, hit the subscribe button, and get out there and dive your next project. Catch you next time.